Briefcase Crimes contains graphic depictions of violence, loud dog noises, and very bad jokes, and is not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome, listeners, to Briefcase Crimes.
I'm Hannah, and I'm filled with facts about horrifying events.
I'm Liz, and I'm filled with a morbid curiosity.
Okay, so today is our first ever recording of our podcast. So, this is your first time. This is our first time.
It's going to be rough.
It's probably going to be rough, but we're going to have fun with it. As much fun as you can have with, murder and such.
Right.
For a long time, Liz and I would go on these car trips, and I would bring along some horrifying murder stories to tell her. And it was always really fun.
And I loved it.
And so we thought, why not just record this and release it to the whole internet?
Right. And it's something we're doing anyway. So
nothing could go wrong with that.
No, not at all.
Foolproof plan.
So I really enjoy these kinds of stories, clearly, because I let her continue to tell them to me. But I don't really seek them out on my own. So I always like to kind of kick back, let someone else do the research, and tell me a story, basically.
Meanwhile, this is what I do instead of sleeping. I spend all night just looking at crime scene photos.
Wow, that's something. I mean...
Well, listen,
I get wigged out too easy to do it at night, but I'm a wimp.
All totally sane people do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
So, Elizabeth.
Hannah.
You are from the gleaming metropolis of Pittsburgh.
Yep, born and raised.
And our first story here, I wanted to keep it a little close to home. So we're starting out in Pittsburgh herself. This is actually a case that, your parents or your grandma might remember. I read a lot of reports of people that were affected by this because it was a really big deal when it happened. So let me set the scene for you. The year is 1969. September. It's fall in Pittsburgh. It's beautiful. So on September 11th, 1969, the Allegheny County Jail had become overcrowded.
Okay.
So they sent 300 inmates to the old workhouse in Blawnox.
Okay.
I don't know if that's how you say that.
Yeah, Blawnox is right.
It is quite a doozy of a word.
Yeah, you gotta say it like you have a beer gut and just got done watching football and just be like, Blawnox.
So, I have to go full Pittsburgh. So they sent him to the old workhouse.
Yeah, there you go.
So they sent 300 inmates to this workhouse. And the thing is, the jail was really secure, but the workhouse was old. It was from the Civil War era. And there were bars on the windows, but they weren't that great anymore. They'd been around for 100 years at this point. So on September 11th, while all the other inmates were taking a shower, a man named Stanley B Haas Jr. and his accomplice Thomas Lubreski took a hacksaw blade. I can find nowhere where they got this hacksaw blade.
Yeah.
Because it's the 60s. It's not like the 20s. It's not like when it was easy to... Well, I guess it's still pretty easy to sneak things into jail, but...
Yeah. I mean, if you have enough resources.
I digress.
I've never been in jail. I don't know.
Yeah, I talk like I have. I just watch a lot of TV.
Right.
They use a hacksaw blade, and they cut through the bars, which again are old and softer than anything that would have been at the county jail. There's also steel grating on a skylight. So they cut through the bars, they bend them, they go to the skylight, they cut through the steel grating, and they smash a wire-enforced window. Then they take a rope made out of their bed sheets. Talk about watching too much TV.
Yeah.
that's purely out of television.
Yes, that doesn't exist in real life.
Well, it did in 1969. And they lowered themselves 50 feet to the ground and they led.
Honestly, I'm really impressed that, well, I guess maybe because it was an old building, maybe it wasn't like as strong as it once was. But I'm really impressed that they would be able to get through one of those wire enforced windows. Like, did they, obviously, I don't expect you to know this, but like, did they use a tool? Did they have anything? Just brute force? Like, that honestly is really impressive.
As far as I know, they had a hacksaw blade, a rope made of bed sheets,
and that's it.
Pure spite.
Pure spite, right.
And, you know,
spite is good fuel.
Spite is the best fuel.
Yeah.
You know, a strong desire to not want to be in prison, I guess.
Well, understandable.
So now this leads to one of the largest manhunts to date at the time. This quickly blows up from beyond just Pittsburgh to the whole nation.
Yeah.
The FBI gets involved. The Army gets involved.
What did these boys do?
Exactly. So now we got to back up.
Right.
We got to talk about Stanley B Haas Jr., who is legitimately, and it's easy, I think, to say this about, most of these people that you read about in stories like this, but Stanley Haas is or was genuinely like a piece of human garbage. Like just human detritus. So starting back from his childhood, I don't have a ton of information about like when he was growing up, but I also just don't care.
Right.
Don't care that much about where you came from because you became a piece of human detritus somehow, and I don't really care. But he grew up in West Tarentum. Ooh, Tarentum.
See, yeah.
I'm not from Pittsburgh.
That's like also one of those weird things where like Tarentum's not really Pittsburgh. Like it's the greater Pittsburgh area. I get really nitpicky about that.
Let me revise. This story takes place in the greater Pittsburgh area.
There we go. Well, the Allegheny Jail's in, but yes, whatever.
It takes place in Allegheny County.
I digress.
So he grows up in West Tarentum, but he doesn't spend a lot of time there. They later move to Cheswick.
Yep.
They move to Cheswick, and his father, who used to be a coal miner, takes a job at Lakewood Memorial Park, which is a cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
And he is going to be the caretaker. And the good thing is the job comes with a house.
Yeah.
And the family desperately needed a house. So this is a good thing for the whole family. And for Stanley, it's a great thing because he's a petty criminal. He is stealing cars, doing a lot of like minor things that nobody super remembers. Like the public doesn't remember these ones as much, but he's mainly known for auto theft.
Okay.
So here's this part that when I read this, I took a minute and I just had to like think about it. So he starts to steal these cars with the plan to sell them later when they're less hot, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And he starts using the cemetery to bury the cars.
What?
So from what I can read, he buried the cars and the parts, and then he would dig them up and resell them later.
Can you imagine like how badly you would like need to want to do something?
So here's where we first see the seeds of a man who's going to punch through a wire-enforced window.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot more sense now. I can't even imagine.
He's digging holes big enough to fit cars in. And by the time, like, when you get it out, isn't it, like, dirty? Like, isn't there dirt in it?
I would assume.
I just don't understand the logistics.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Maybe I'm not a criminal mastermind.
Clearly.
But, like...
he wasn't either because he got his way into jail. But...
Oh, that's a great segue.
Mm-hmm.
So, he rarely got caught for these little crimes. Not that auto theft is a little crime, but you know what I mean. He rarely gets caught for those crimes, but when he did get caught, he wouldn't do that much jail time for each one.
Mm-hmm.
The most he ever served was like 6 months.
Okay.
So he's used to being like in and out of jail for short stints, but he's never faced like a sentence of a decent chunk of time.
Right, like not hard time.
He has not done hard time. So, fast forward, he's 26 years old. He and another criminal associate whose name I could not find anywhere. Although, let it be known, there is a book about this. I will say, a book came out about this case, written by a local man, a man in the area, who seems very, very knowledgeable. I have watched interviews with him. His name is actually, let me rep him a little bit here because a lot of this is his research. His name is Tom Hollick. Hi, all. This is Hannah in editing mode in the future. The author of Born to Lose is actually named James Hollick. I do say this correctly later in the episode, but I wanted to correct this initial misnaming of him. His name is James Hollick, not Tom Hollick.
Okay.
And his book is called Born to Lose, which we'll talk about why that's relevant later. But I did not read his book. I will say this right now. I did not read this book. However, he seems very, very knowledgeable, much more knowledgeable than me. So, listeners, I don't imagine Elizabeth will do this, but listeners, if you are interested, you can seek that out. And we'll have it linked in the brief later. Stanley Haas is 26. He and another criminal associate, again, those are Hollick's words that I'm taking directly out of his mouth. I haven't been able to find that guy's name anywhere, but again, I didn't read the book. So if you read the book and you find out what his name was, tweet it at us.
Yeah.
So I'm prolonging this terrible sentence I have to say next.
Okay.
He and another criminal associate abduct and rape a 17-year-old girl.
Tight.
She was from Shaler Township.
Oh no. That's where my aunt lives.
I know. That's the thing, is reading all of these, I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, dog, I know people that live there.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was from Shaler Township. She was a high school girl. I can't find any information about her, and honestly, I don't want to. This is not the kind of event that I would want defining my entire life.
Right.
Many, many years later, and
right, if you can get past that.
Yeah, I'm going to respect her privacy. I don't care to know. What's important is they abduct her from a streetway, an alleyway. They rape her in a vehicle, and then they release her.
Okay.
And I think you find this a lot with criminals who rape first, is that they do these violent acts, these assaults, and they release their victims, and then that comes back to bite them. And so what they learn is the next time I cannot release them.
Yeah.
I need to not leave any witnesses. And that's almost pretty much exactly what happens. They release her, and then eventually he is apprehended, and he's taken to trial and is convicted of rape.
Okay.
And here is where his 6 months maximum information comes into play. So he's convicted of rape, and he is awaiting sentencing in the Allegheny County Jail, and he's looking at 10 years to 20 years.
Okay.
Which, I feel like 20 years is a lot longer than we give most rapists today.
Well, yeah, I mean, not to get political, but I think that's a fair assessment.
Oh, absolutely, to get political.
Especially assuming I am assuming here, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming he's a white guy. So, yeah, absolutely.
You
that's
assume correctly.
More than,
and
especially
remember,
an affluent white man.
Please remember that he is a white man. That comes back later.
Oh, I'm sure.
So he's looking at 10 to 20 years, which again, I think is an appropriate amount of time. 20 years is the one I would go for. I think that's an appropriate amount of time that we don't see even now. Not even to say on the cusp of 1970. So he is in the jail when he is awaiting sentencing. So he has not been sentenced at the point of his escape. And so basically, when he's moved to the Blawnox workhouse, he sees that as an opportunity to not have to be here for 10 to 20 years.
Oh, for sure.
So that's how he ends up escaping. So remember, that happened on September 11th, 1969. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. This is where the whole thing explodes.
All right, I'm ready.
So first, he escapes. The story goes nuts. Everybody knows they need to be looking for these two convicted felons at this point who have escaped from a jail. You can imagine
how
that would explode. And everybody knows what he looks like, and they know that he has on his left arm 3 tattoos.
Okay.
He has a heart with a ribbon, which is original.
Right. Hey, it was 1969.
I'll roast a murderer. It's fine. A murderer and a rapist and an auto thief. So he's a heart with a ribbon. He has Pat, P-A-T, written on him somewhere. And he has Born to Lose.
Oh, man.
Which is a clever title of the book, if I'm honest.
Talk about, like, also setting yourself up for failure. Like,
yeah, nobody's going to go to a job interview and be like, you know who I want to hire?
Born to Lose over here.
The guy with the Born to Lose tattoo. Yes, please. Please make him my accountant. Would love old Stan to be my financial advisor.
Oh my God.
So he escapes and he steals. What do you steal if you want to be inconspicuous?
I mean, nothing. But maybe that's just me.
Well, law-abiding citizen answer on the back burner here.
I mean,
he steals.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume he would need a vehicle. So
if you're going to get anywhere, you're not going to do that on foot.
No.
I mean, he could probably hitch a bus. It's Pittsburgh. They're out there.
Maybe trolleys. Well, no, I'm not sure. I don't know when the trolleys went out. But hey,
he could have hopped a barge.
Get on the incline.
Get on the incline. Go to Mount Washington.
Right.
I think he could have hopped a barge and sailed down the mighty Monongahela.
Yeah.
But he didn't do any of those things.
Oh, God.
He instead decided to steal a yellow Chevrolet.
Bright yellow. Good choice.
Inconspicuous.
Mm-hmm.
This man is a criminal mastermind. So he's driving this yellow Chevrolet. Everybody, it's being put out there to all these police forces. There's an APB out that this guy's out here. Here's what he looks like. Here's his tattoos. And he's driving a stolen yellow Chevrolet.
Right.
A Verona police officer.
Okay. That's where my grandma lives, in Verona.
I know. And I was
you've been to her house.
Yeah, I was like, that's where Peggy lives.
Someone I know.
This happens on September 19th. So he hangs out for 8 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't ascertain doing what.
I mean, I assume he was smart enough to know that he had to, sit until the dust settled at least a little.
I think he went to a Pirates game.
Not in Verona, he didn't.
Go straight to Verona. He went from Blawnox.
Oh, it took him 8 days to get to Verona?
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, even on foot, it wouldn't take that long.
So he steals a car. He's in Verona. He gets pulled over by Verona patrolman Joseph Zanella.
That's such a Pittsburgh immigrant name. I love it.
And poor Joe Zanella was 25 years old. He was a volunteer firefighter.
Oh, no.
He was a father of 2. He heard on his radio that there was a description of a stolen yellow Chevrolet. Mm-hmm. And he pulls Haas over. And Joe Zanella was not new to this, being a police officer thing. He had apprehended made 2 felony arrests in prior days. Not right before that, but in the recent memory. He had made 2 felony arrests before this, so he knew what you do. He didn't approach the car. He didn't going guns blazing. Right. He was back by his car, and Stanley Haas looked like he was in his stolen vehicle looking forward and being a normal law-abiding citizen.
Right.
But he was checking his mirrors, and he aimed a gun over his shoulder. I know. Everything in this is like it's from a movie. A bad movie, but a movie.
Right.
While he looks like he's looking forward, what he's actually doing is checking his mirrors. And he aims a gun over his shoulder, fires, misses once, I believe, and shoots Joseph Zanella in the chest.
Ooh.
Fatally wounding him.
Of course.
And then he drives off. There's tons of people see this happen. A crowd forms around Joseph Zanella. People are calling for help. And unfortunately, he dies. So at this point, and this was in a parking lot off Plum Street in Oakland.
Okay. Yeah, because there's a whole little business district there.
Yes.
Which is where I would assume.
I've seen pictures of it at present day, and there's a Rite Aid and stuff. It looks just like a street corner. Yeah, it's cobblestone because it's all old. It's a very historical road. But yeah. So after that, he ditches his car because duh. And he steals a car at Hillcrest Shopping Center in Lower Burrell.
It could go either way with that one.
I'm gonna say Burrell.
That's fine.
So he steals another car.
Hopefully not bright yellow. Maybe.
Yeah, I can't quite find much about that. Again, if I were listening to me right now, I would be screaming. Maybe you should have read the book, Hannah. Well, I didn't.
Look, we don't all have that much time.
Sit down, Karen. It's a podcast.
For fun. We're having fun.
He steals a car. This is on the 19th.
Mm-hmm.
This brings us up to the 21st. On the 21st, he ditches that car near North Park.
Okay. I learned to drive in North Park.
Wow, maybe you learned to drive in his stolen car.
No.
You just roll up and pick the first car you saw?
No, it was my dad's car. So, can confirm.
Can confirm was not stolen car. We don't know.
Correct.
Craig
I mean, I'm
a
pretty
car
sure.
thief. You don't know.
Don't say that. Don't you taint my poor father's name.
Craig is the nicest man on the face of the planet.
Yes.
He does not steal vehicles of any kind.
No.
That man wouldn't even steal a fly.
No, he really wholesome, to the nth degree.
Yeah, it's got sugar coming out of his fingertip.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, back to Stanley Haas.
He's not wholesome and has no sugar.
Not wholesome. The antithesis of the Craig.
Yep.
Stanley, on the 21st of September, ditches the car that he stole in Hillcrest Shopping Center near North Park, and he steals another one. And then he goes to Leechburg.
Oh, yeah. That's farther. Yeah, that's not, in the Pittsburgh area really anymore.
Well, he goes to Leechburg, and he doesn't steal a car this time. He just steals a license plate.
Interesting tactic.
So that'll throw him off.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how it works out for him, Cotton. At this point, everybody's looking for him. You know, he's on FBI's Most Wanted. They're pulling out all the stops to get this guy. The next day, on September 22nd. No, actually, let me back up because I missed something. This is very important. So the same day that he steals the license plate, he kidnaps a 20-year-old named Karen Malgott.
Because why not?
And she is from Arnold.
Okay.
She's in Greenwald Memorial Park near Lower Burrell.
Burrell, right.
And he takes her to Bedford, Pennsylvania, down my way, and then to Wheeling, West Virginia.
Why?
It's the weirdest pathway. And honestly, when I put the brief up, I'm going to make a map of the important places.
Yeah.
And the route, because if you don't know the area, this makes zero sense.
But knowing it, he's hopping so much. Even when he was in the Pittsburgh area, it was still kind of oh, well, that was southwest. Now he's up northeast. Now he's south again.
Listen, if you never stop moving.
Yeah, I guess.
I've got you if you never stop moving. I don't know what he did or did not do to Karen Malgott.
Mm-hmm.
But he does not kill her. To my knowledge, he did not rape her, but he very easily might have. That could be somewhere that I've missed. Actually, in some accounts, that exact little snippet isn't even mentioned. This kidnapping isn't even in there. So I don't know. Again, it might be in his book.
Right.
Maybe someday when we are better men than now, we could have Mr. Hollick back on our program.
Yeah.
And school me on all the things I got wrong.
Maybe.
About actual piece of human garbage, Stanley Haas.
Right.
However, he kidnaps this poor woman, and then he eventually lets her go. And he then steals a sports car.
Ugh.
Right?
Honestly. Well, because what happened was man, I could steal this car, steal license plate, do a switcheroo, pick up a chick, then dump her when I'm tired of her, and then man, I didn't get caught yet. Let me just push that. Let me just take that luck and push it as far as I possibly can.
Yeah, not that I want him to get away with this, but he really just he makes a lot of bad choices.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
But also, through this whole time, he is hopping cars I change underwear. He's got a new car every day.
Right.
Which, I mean, not that I'm giving advice here, but if you are running from the cops, don't first. Turn yourself in, Tyler. I know you're listening. If your name is Tyler and you've done something that the cops should know about, turn yourself in. But if you're running from the cop, aside from don't,
right,
I guess keeping on the move and changing what you're in makes sense. It's harder to track you.
Yeah, it does.
And especially in the 60s,
yeah,
I'm not 1,000,000% certain because I'm not an expert, but like I know that in the early 60s is when they started using like police walkie-talkies and like being able to get information long distances in a timely fashion.
Right.
So I imagine by the late 60s, it still would have been pretty tricky, for instance, to get information from Pittsburgh to Wheeling even.
Oh, yeah.
To tell them what he was driving.
Would they even have bothered to reach out to all the surrounding places? Because that's just a lot of legwork.
Absolutely. So normally I would say no.
Right.
Normally in this time period, it's absolutely, you see hundreds and hundreds of times. And you see that with the Golden State Killer case. That's why it was such a big thing when they cracked it, is that it was the jurisdictions not communicating.
Right.
But in this case, because he was an escaped felon, and now he's a cop killer. So they were alerting everybody.
That's a good point.
And that's another part of the reason why there are so many accounts out there of like, oh yeah, I remember this. I remember not being allowed to have recess, or I remember my dad sitting up all night with a shotgun in case he came here. Like,
right.
And that's like, as well as I do, that a lot of these kinds of local cases get covered by like the local news. Like,
for sure.
Stanley Haas doesn't have a Wikipedia page, thank God. Much to my research chagrin. I would like there to be information readily available, but a lot of this stuff is covered by like local news sources.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times there are comments on those news pages that say things like, I remember this, I was however old, or I had just had my first child, and all of that stuff. That's why with it being 1969, there's a very, very good chance that, like, again, Peggy or Craig even might remember this. It's entirely possible.
I don't think my parents would have been quite old enough yet, but my father's parents likely would remember.
Oh, absolutely. And also, your father, bless his wholesome heart, has the memory of a goldfish.
Oh, he does.
So it's absolutely possible that he would not remember. Sorry to roast Craig in this episode. That was not my intention.
That's okay. I'll let it slide this time.
Oh, I was
Don't let it happen again.
I was more apologizing to Craig if he ever listens to this, which he will, because he's very supportive.
He is.
Back to Stanley Haas. He's driving this sports car, and on September 22nd, this is where things take an even worse turn, in my opinion.
If it's possible.
If it's possible, and it sure is. Hazel, if you could just shake at the worst possible time, that would be fantastic. She's like, anything for you, mother. Yeah, it takes a turn for the way worse. It's possible.
Let's hear it.
He's now in LaVale, Maryland.
Oof. Okay.
Some places say LaVale, some places say Cumberland. I'm going to say it's LaVale with a Cumberland area.
Where is he going? He's back in the totally opposite direction. I can't keep up with him.
You know that scene in The Emperor's New Groove?
Uh-huh. With the map?
The map.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is exactly what it's like. Or like, yeah, I would say Indiana Jones, but his map doesn't make as much sense as Indiana Jones's map.
Yeah.
So he's in Cumberland area, LaVale, Maryland. He kidnaps 21-year-old Linda Peugeot and her 2-year-old daughter, Lori Mae.
No.
Yes. I'm telling you, it gets dark. He kidnaps her and her daughter. He drives around her late model Pontiac GTO.
Okay.
Just some backstory, because I think it's important. Just like I did with Joseph Zanella, I think it's important to talk about these two here. Linda Peugeot, again, was 21 years old, a mother of a young girl. She had been the valedictorian of her class at Western Port High School in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
There are pictures of her. Not that it's important, but she was beautiful. In cases like this, I feel like a lot of times people are like, oh, she was so beautiful. And it's like, yeah, but she was also smart and, like a good mother by all accounts. But yeah, she was also very pretty. He steals her Pontiac GTO, and this is contested. At this point in the story, they disappear.
Okay.
We'll come back to this later. But he steals her car, and then they're not in the picture. After that, you're going to love this. He goes from LaVale, Maryland to Wellington, Ohio.
Okay.
Again, dude, why? He goes to Wellington, Ohio, and he walks into a florist, and he orders a dozen roses to send to his girlfriend in Brackenridge.
Oh, of course.
Because,
what else do you do?
You know, priorities. You're a Romeo on the Gomeo. Like, that's basically like one of those commercials that's like, take time out of your running from the law.
Right.
To show her you care. With a dozen roses from the florist in Wellington. So he orders his roses, he sends them to his girlfriend. That's on the 29th of September. From there, between then and October 3rd, we're not really sure what he does, but he goes to Des Moines and Sioux Falls, Iowa. So he's heading west, and he'd really like to give Iowa a try.
Apparently.
I'm told it's wonderful there.
Yeah, I've heard good things.
I've heard great things. Maybe we should take a fun 2-week jailbreak vacation. Stop in at Wellington and send someone some flowers.
Why not?
So he spends some time in Des Moines and Sioux Falls, and from there, on October 4th, he goes to a Travelers Motel in Waterloo, Iowa. Which, am I remembering this correctly? Is Waterloo not the battle in which Napoleon was defeated?
I could not tell you. I don't know much about that era.
Almost 98% certain.
You very well could be.
The irony of it did not go lost upon me.
Of course.
He goes to this motel, and he gets there at like 1:20 p.m. And later that day, he's outside of a restaurant, and he gets busted, fam.
Good.
Finally. It took a long time. It took, I believe, 2 weeks he was on the run.
Oh, I think it was maybe a little, like a touch more than that.
So, there's a count somewhere, again, probably in the book. He was out on the run from September 11th, 1969 until October 4th, 1969. And he made it the whole way from Pittsburgh to Iowa. Hooray. So when he's nabbed, he's driving Linda Peugeot's Pontiac GTO. Her purse and Lori Mae's car seat are in the trunk.
Okay.
And it's at this point that he confesses to the police that he murdered Linda Peugeot and he smothered Lori Mae, the 2-year-old, and dumped them in 2 Midwestern states.
Oh my goodness.
However, certain sources say that he didn't, like he recanted that, or he never quite said what he did. Because you'll find certain reports that say, oh, he shot her, he raped her and then he shot her, or he smothered Lori Mae, or he shot Lori Mae, or he killed the mother and then the child. There's all kinds of different stories. So we never got like a full, as far as I am aware, he didn't ever say like what exactly he did.
Right.
But their bodies to this day have not been found. And when he was in prison, her family would come and ask where they were, and he wouldn't even see them. Because again, he's a piece of human garbage. In March of 1970, his trial ended. I do want to point out at this juncture, this is where I have been excited all day to tell you this.
Okay.
He goes to trial, and he is defended by none other than there's never a fee unless we get money for you.
Oh my gosh.
1-800-4-EDGAR.
Of course.
Yeah, so he is defended by a very young, very tired-looking Edgar Snyder. I
never would have thought, I don't know. I have no concept of time. Obviously, I was not around in the 60s. Absolutely. So no concept of time, but I never would have thought that Edgar Snyder would have already been in business at that point.
For our listeners, because again, we have people listening to us, which is strange.
Yeah.
For our listeners who may not have grown up in the area and don't know how ubiquitous Mr. Edgar Snyder Esquire is.
I can say, though, every area has these lawyers with those pervasive commercials.
Please explain.
So it's one of those things where, at this point anyways, at least now in, the 2000s, Edgar Snyder himself doesn't really even operate, but he owns this huge conglomerate of lawyers. And it's just those commercials, the billboards everywhere, that you can't get away from. I will say, too, we have one here now that I've moved. I don't live in the Pittsburgh area anymore. I have moved, and we have one here now. And his whole thing, I know, because you've seen it when you've come to visit me, but his whole thing is like this horrible, and I mean absolutely god-awful CG tiger. And like, I don't even understand where he got this, like, I don't know if it's a nickname or like what it even is, but he uses these tigers in his commercials. And it's such bad CG. It like isn't a pun. It has nothing to do with his name. I don't understand. But it's like those kinds of super cheesy lawyer commercials that you see like on daytime TV,
when you're homesick.
Yeah, like after The Price is Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Old people and people who are laid up from work-related injuries are at home watching The Price is Right. And on comes old Edgy Snidey saying, have you been injured at work? Well, I'm the guy you need, and there's never a fee unless we get money for you.
Right, that's the little slogan. There's never a fee unless we get money for you.
However, he wasn't always...
point and everything.
I'm not sure if this term is necessarily offensive or not, but I don't know that he clearly wasn't always an ambulance chaser.
No. I mean, I think when you're starting out, you just take what you can get.
Oh, yeah,
as a defense lawyer,
So incidentally, and I'll link this in the brief with my sources here, but there is, if anyone is interested, I will link an Edgar Snyder commercial because, and if I can find the CGI Tiger Man, I'll link in that as well.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can find it because it's just worth a watch, worth for a little bit of a laugh.
So there is a video, and it is on YouTube, and I will link it. And it's a news program in the Pittsburgh area doing feature on James Holick and his book, and they bring in Edgar Snyder as well.
Sure.
To discuss the case, and so he's there talking about his experience, and also you can see I'm just like gonna gush a little bit again about how much I like Jim Holick, because he just seems very knowledgeable, whereas clearly I am not. I'm all over the place.
Well, it's because he's read his book.
He has definitely read his book, probably more than once. So he is in it, and you can see how great he is. And you can also see Edgar Snyder. But yeah, they talk a lot about, the case. They go into more detail about the case. They'll probably correct everything I've said a million times. And Edgar Snyder, I believe in that interview, says he was a public defender. He would not have...
That makes sense.
He would have been assigned that case, I imagine.
As a public defender, yeah.
Again, not an expert on the penal system.
I mean, from my knowledge of Law and Order...
From all the Law and Order SVU I've watched.
Yeah. If you cannot afford a lawyer will be assigned to you.
And it will be Edgar Snyder.
Yeah. If you're lucky.
It does not matter what you did or where you are. Edgar Snyder will find you.
Yeah.
He will represent you in a court of law. So yes, his lawyer is Edgar Snyder. I will include a picture of young Edgar Snyder as well, because I was blown away. And I actually had sent that photo to Kyle as well. Mm-hmm. And I had said, if you gave me 10,000 guesses, I would never have said that was Edgar Snyder.
Really? That big of a difference?
It's just like, Edgar Snyder's not really a person that I think about often.
True.
So, and again, you and I know him in a totally different context, as we just went on about. But, we've always known him as the guy on TV with Marcus and Mac commercials, and then there's an Edgar Snyder commercial, and then there's a J.G. Wentworth commercial. Right. He's one of those. So it's weird to be like, this is a very intense criminal case. This man has killed a police officer, escaped from prison, raped a girl, all of that.
Right.
The interesting thing is he goes to trial. He's represented by Edgar Snyder. And he is not charged for the murders of Linda and Lori May.
I mean, that kind of makes sense, though, because without a body...
Absolutely. And that's another thing where I feel like if he did recant his confession, that would make sense. That would jive with what we see happen.
Right.
But he is charged with the killing of Joseph Zanella.
Mm-hmm.
He's convicted of first-degree murder. The jury deliberated for 65 minutes.
Oh, I mean, that's a long time, but, like, not really.
Not in jury time.
No.
Absolutely not in jury time. That is like, yeah, he definitely did it. Okay, let's go back. I'm ready to go home now.
Review it and get out of there.
So as much as I would love to tell you that his story ends in prison, he goes to prison where he rots his whole life away.
Mm-hmm.
First, the jury finds him guilty, and he's sentenced to death in the electric chair. However...
This is the 60s. Well, I guess it would have been 70 at that point.
Yeah, this is 1970, but still, the electric chair is alive and well.
Oh, yeah.
He is sentenced to death in the electric chair, but that was too good for him. So they appeal to the state Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court reverses his sentence, and he gets sentenced to life in prison instead.
Okay.
He's also resentenced for his previous rape conviction as well. So that's added into the life in prison.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. He gets sent to not the workhouse this time in Blawnox. He gets sent to Western Penitentiary.
Oh, yeah.
In Pittsburgh.
Yep. More security for sure. Because, I mean, where he would have been initially before being transferred, that's just the little county jail. Mm-hmm. You know, like, Western Penitentiary is more secure.
Yeah, well, remember, he was awaiting sentencing, so they wouldn't have put him in, like, big prison.
Right.
Not yet.
Right.
He was in jail, but then he wasn't even in jail. He was in this, like, old crumbly building.
Yeah.
I picture it as, like, moldering away. Like,
I would imagine.
Like a heap of rocks that they're just here, stay in there.
I'm sure, even now, the Allegheny County Jail that's there now, I'm pretty sure is a new building. So it had to have been, I'd say like the late 90s, early 2000s. Don't quote me. I was a child at that time. But like I vaguely remember them like putting up the newer building that's there now, or like renovating at least to be a jail at that point. Mm-hmm. So, and then the 90s, that the Allegheny County Jail would have been like deemed unfit.
I know. And that's where he was transferred away from.
Exactly.
I can't imagine what the workhouse looked like.
Yeah. And like you can literally, I don't know if the old one was in a similar area, because again, I was very young, wasn't paying attention to things like that. But like you can drive across the parkway, like literally next to the Allegheny County Jail. Like you can see inside the jail. You can see they've got like basketball courts that you can see right into.
I feel like this is something I have seen.
Oh yeah, I've definitely driven you past it, whether you realize it or not. Yeah. It's like really close to downtown. It's kind of in the middle of everything.
So yeah, he gets taken originally from Allegheny County to the crumbling remains of this workhouse.
Right.
This time, they're not taking any chances. He goes straight to Western Penn.
For sure.
So, this guy goes to Western Penn. He sucks. And he is just, as if to make him even worse, he goes to prison, and he's incredibly violent. He becomes a weightlifter.
Of course.
And he becomes the leader of a white supremacist group. Remember?
Came right back around.
Remember? I told you to remember he's a white man.
Yeah.
And he really plays to his strengths in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And he leans on the fact that he is a white man.
I did not see that coming.
Yeah. I mean, I'm shocked but unsurprised.
Yeah, for sure.
So he becomes the leader of this white supremacist group. And in 1972... he attacks and stabs Eugene Gino Sproul, who is the leader of the prison's Sunni Muslim gang.
Oh, man.
Right? There's a quote here from Joe Hoffman. He was the Western Penn prison counselor. Now he's a White Oaks police chief. Or I guess he is the White Oaks police chief. He witnessed this happen.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that Haas taped knives to his hands. And then, in quotes, like Conan the Barbarian,
Okay.
I will admit, I have not seen Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that in the film Conan the Barbarian, Arnold Schwarzenegger tapes knives to his hand? Is that a thing that happens in the film?
I don't know. I've genuinely never seen it either. I have
Send me,
no idea.
DM me. Let me know. Have you
Yeah,
watched
somebody
Conan
tell
the
us.
Barbarian?
Send us a screenshot. I want to see
I
these
want to see
knives.
Conan O'Brien taping knives to his hands. I might have lost the plot there. So he tapes knives to his hands. He tries to stab Sproul, who was apparently much, much bigger. He pulled Sproul behind a locked gate, and when they talked to Sproul, he refused to say who it was who stabbed him.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, again, I've never been to prison, but I feel like I would be like, that guy stabbed me. He taped knives to his hand. It was just like the film Conan the Barbarian. You've
No,
all
but you
seen it.
can't. Because, I mean, there's like a code, and I don't mean like to say that in like a weird, like, oh, bro code. But, like, no, honestly, like, you're in a confined space with someone, and if you are a snitch, snitches get
Yes.
stitches. Like, you can't always just be like, oh, yeah, it was Bobby on the playground. Like, he pushed me, mom. Like, you can't always just rat a person out like that.
He stabbed me with knives taped to his hands.
I feel like the tape
Conan
should
the
have given out.
Barbarian. I know. I'm just still stuck on Conan the Barbarian, and I'm sorry,
okay.
Joe Hoffman, if you're listening. You aren't, but if you are, please DM me. Please slide into those DMs and let me know what you mean. I would have went with Wolverine.
Yeah, same.
Because I'm picturing them between his fingers. That might not have been the case. We might need to watch Conan the Barbarian to find out exactly how they were taped to his hands. So he refuses to say who it was, but on the other side of the gate, he says Haas was in a kind of frenzy, and his quote, his eyes were rolling back.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I've never wanted to stab someone, but this seems
not like for realsies.
It seems like a lot.
Yeah.
Like he's in
It was a little too intense for me.
Stan,
Yeah.
You're at a 10.
Yeah.
I need you to not be at a 10.
Bring it down to like a 6.
Yeah, or lower. It gets even worse.
I was just gonna say, like, what? So does he just live out the rest of his days in prison, or?
No, it gets worse.
Oh, God.
So,
good.
He gets, after, being a piece of crap, he gets sent to solitary confinement.
Okay.
So, while he's in solitary confinement, he and 2 other prisoners, this is in 1973, they use table legs, a chair, and parts of a plastic razor to beat and slash to death Captain Walter Peterson.
I have a lot of questions.
I'm here to answer them all.
First of all, you're in solitary. How do you have that many things? Like table legs and things like that's like question number 1. Also, how do you have a buddy to do this with? Number 2, because like I'm pretty sure solitary means like alone.
Uno.
Right.
Right?
But yeah, those are my main questions.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But the important thing about Walter Peterson was that he was 42, he was married, he had a child, and he was the first African American to serve as a guard at the prison.
Oh, that's why.
So, of course,
yeah,
in Stanley's demented mind and his his two bros.
Yeah, not that I'm sympathizing, because hello, I'm not. But like the logic behind it, like, yeah, clearly he leads like a white supremacy group. And to have a captain who would be ruling over him, yeah, I can see where he would find that to be a problem.
I will say, I understand that all of these articles are about Stanley Haas, but it does annoy me a little bit how all of these say Haas and 2 other inmates. Like, these guys also deserve to get a little bit of, being called out.
They're clearly in the same white supremacy group, gang, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely. I'm going to call it a posse. A posse?
I don't know.
Play group.
Playgroup? Oh
Because it
no.
sounds like they're a bunch of stinky babies that poop their diapers.
Well, they are.
After killing, again, this is just like, you're already in jail, dude. Like, I get that you're serving life, but like, how bad do you have to suck?
Yeah.
To be like, you know what I'm going to do today? Kill somebody for no freaking reason. That was on December 10th. He's then found guilty of second-degree murder, and he is sentenced to 10 to 20 years on top of his life sentence.
Right, okay.
He doesn't get to stay at Western Penn.
Okay.
They then send him to the only place that he deserves to be in.
Okay.
He is sent to Philadelphia.
Oh no.
Full offense to everyone from Philadelphia.
Yep.
Just kidding. Please don't hurt me. He's sent to Philadelphia because that's the only other maximum security prison in Pennsylvania at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He's sent to Philadelphia, and that's where he lives out the rest of his days. And by that, I mean, in 1978, he's found dead in his cell with a blue shoelace hanging around his neck. It was listed as suicide. It's the official cause of death. William Robinson was a corrections official and says that Haas left a suicide note for him.
Okay.
However, a lot of people do not think it was a suicide.
Well, I mean...
For instance, Tony Klimko, who is a reporter for the Valley News Dispatch, he interviewed Haas a lot and wrote to him a lot. He disagrees that this was suicide. He said before he died that he didn't believe that Haas committed suicide. He said there were too many people who wanted him dead. And our old friend, Edgar Snyder, Esquire, agrees that it was not a suicide.
Yeah, I mean, just with the limited information that I have, I doubt it.
My first thought was that I'm a 26-year-old woman. There's a 35-year-old man. And I've seen his stature from photos, which you can see in the brief yourself if you'd like to look. What a shoelace? I mean, like, I imagine you could hang yourself with anything.
Right.
Just like you can drown in a teaspoon of water, right? Like, but a shoelace? I feel like a shoelace would break.
I don't know.
That was my first thought. But Edgar Snyder, I'm going to quote him on this because I really enjoy this. Edgar Snyder says, he was obviously killed in prison. He was a maniac, and he was killed by another maniac. He no sooner killed himself than the man in the moon.
What even?
I don't know. That last sentence sounds like he no sooner killed himself than he killed the man in the moon.
Oh, I get it.
But
I get it.
Edgar, if you're listening, DM
clarification.
Me.
Yeah.
Listen, if Edgar Snyder DMs me, I will retire immediately. I've made it. 9-year-old Hannah will be so excited. And that's the
Unless
story.
he DMs you with a lawsuit. Like, don't talk about me like that.
We've said nothing but good things about you, Mr. Snyder.
Yeah, very catchy commercials. They work.
We love your commercials. All I cared about as a child was Edgar Snyder and Gabrielle DeRose, who was the local news anchor. Yeah. So, his story ends on December 6th, 1978, when he is killed. However, he is shipped from Philadelphia. His body is shipped from State Correctional Institute in Graterford, Pennsylvania, or Graterford. He is shipped back to Lakewood Memorial Park in Cheswick, where he is buried in the cemetery where he once buried cars.
Oh, man.
And that is the story of Stanley Haas.
I wonder if any of the cars are still there.
I don't know. But, like, I could not believe that I could, I guess, believe that I had never heard of this story. But, like, this was a huge deal. The FBI was involved, the president called the army, like, it was big.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know anybody, maybe I'm just not asking people.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go ask.
To be fair, I haven't asked anybody. But I had never heard of this before.
I definitely hadn't.
The photos are amazing as well. I'll put them all in the brief so everyone can see. The photos are fantastic. He just looks awful when they pick him up, as he should.
Right.
And Edgar Snyder just looks young. But, like, not that young. No
Yeah.
offense, Mr. Snyder, please.
Well, he's been through law school, clearly.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, like, I don't know. It's, like you said, I have no idea of time is an illusion.
Right.
So I feel like he's around now.
Yeah.
Shouldn't he be, like, much younger in 1969? But, I mean, like, my parents were born in the early 60s.
Yeah, mine
mid.
too.
So, I mean, I guess it's not that far-fetched.
No, and like I said, he does not currently practice law. Like, my understanding is just that he still owns the firm, but that he's not practicing. So for all intents, he's a retired gentleman, you know.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You gotta think of it that way.
When you said that earlier.
Yeah.
Didn't even think of it.
Yeah, so I mean, he owns it, but not, I don't know what all he would do there, but he doesn't practice, is my understanding.
Yeah, well, he's a much younger gentleman in these pictures.
Yeah.
Guess we should wrap this puppy up, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
So, that was that.
Yeah, takeaway, Edgar Snyder, older than I thought.
There's never be unless he gets money for you.
That's right.
I wonder if he charged Stanley Haas a fee.
Oh, well, public defender, no.
Wonder if he charged the taxpayers a fee.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. Again, never been persecuted or prosecuted, I should say. Never been put in jail.
Or prosecuted.
But yeah.
I feel like heavy. Like we need something light to end this.
I don't know if we're gonna get that.
I don't either. What's one good thing you did for yourself this week?
Oh, yikes. I got to sleep in yesterday, and like I know that sounds like the littlest, tiniest thing ever, but oh my gosh, was it nice? Like, I'll take it.
I love sleeping.
I'll say that's because I mean it's only Tuesday, so without going into last week, I mean getting to sleep in, that was primo.
Well,
when you know you're an adult, when you're just like, oh yeah, I got to sleep.
And you've got 3 more days of the week. I mean, of the work week, I guess.
Yeah.
You've got much longer than that for the real week.
Right.
To do something nice for yourself.
That's right.
I had coffee and dinner with our friend Ashley last night.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, we had coffee. We've been trying to do fika once a month, or once a week, rather. So we had iced coffee because it was very hot.
Mm-hmm.
And I made us grilled cheese and ramen. And then we just, like, pied out and watched The L Word.
That sounds awesome.
It was so nice. And it's actually fantastic to have, like, a date with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Then I know I need to clean my house.
Yeah. No, totally. Because we had people over last Sunday and it was the same thing. We, like, totally hustled to get clean. Not that we were dirty, but, like, yeah, it needed touching up.
Yeah, I mean, if nobody came to see me, I would live in a hovel.
For sure.
I would live in the old work house in Blawnox.
Better get those windows fixed.
I'm going to punch through the skylight. So, I guess I'm going to extend that question to anybody listening. Slide into them DMs, send us a tweet or an email. Probably say what all of our stuff is, to be honest.
I'm pretty sure we're the same thing everywhere, though. I don't think we had to, like, get any weird names anywhere. But you can find us, Briefcase Crimes, where we have a page on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We've got a Twitter. I think we've got a coffee. It should be the same name everywhere.
Absolutely. And I would say look to Facebook, look to Instagram for information on where you can find the brief.
Yeah. If you want all that extra information, we'll have links on all of our social media. That's where you can find it.
And that the brief will include outlines. It'll include pictures that I referenced. It'll include videos that I referenced. And I'll link all of my sources, as well as I'll link the book Born to Lose. We can all read it, or not. You can read it and give me the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah. Tell her anything she got wrong.
All that money into Jim Hollick's pocket. He seems like a very nice man who deserves all the best.
Yeah.
So on that note, I suppose we should sign off.
Yeah. Thank you for listening.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Mm.